Barbara, welcome to Waterstones. Welcome to London.
Thank you.
It's rude in a way to bring an author in to talk about their book and to start off talking about the physical object rather than what's inside it, but we have to talk about this book.
It's not at all rude. I would spend a lot of time as an infomercial queen with this book. Look at this. This sprayed edge knocked me out. So the wallpaper wraps around. We have, of course, a beautiful jacket image with my name on it.
Obviously.
And also look at these end papers.
End papers with the sort of falling, the wallpaper peeling off the walls.
The motif of the falling down house is very well wrapped with this. No, this is, I'm delighted. This is not only the most beautiful of my books I've ever seen, this is the most beautiful book I've ever seen.
There we go. Well,
so, am I done?
Hey, job done. Who wouldn't want the most beautiful book that's ever been made? But it's about a family dealing with the aftermath of tragedy, and of course them falling apart in ways that their house is also falling apart around them.
Right, and it's about the times we're in. That was my starting point. I wanted to look at how people behave when it feels like it's the end of the world as we know it. And so this family, Willa's family, is a microcosm for, sort of my country, your country. Their familiar shelter is failing at just really every level, economic, social, political, environmental, all of the things that they expected to have as a middle-class family that has worked hard simply aren't there.
As you say, it's a middle-class family, isn't it? And there is something particular about the idea that you work hard, you buy your house, you have your 2.4 children, and that life is supposed to get better.
This is the myth that we've all kind of bought into without even thinking about it. And the better there is defined in material terms. Mm-hmm. So it's really, without saying so, we've all been operating on the assumption that there will always be more. So the young generation coming up in this novel and in this world has a different understanding. They've known all along there will not always be more fish in the sea. I wanted to write about what's universal in human nature, because that's what we're supposed to do as novelists. So how interesting would it be if I could think of another time in history when people were required, really just had to accept a whole new set of rules, a new way of thinking about the world, and so create a set of characters from that time and from this time and put them in the same place and have this house crumbling around them. What's happening in both cases, then and now, is a profound insecurity in the face of sort of tackling new challenges, and a great desire to cling to the earlier way of thinking, sort of whether it's scientific, whether it's a passage into a more scientific way of thinking, or whether it's a passage into perhaps a more generous way of organizing an economy, or just what it's the old mythologies that most people want to hang on to.
You've mentioned there the economy, and as a British reader of this book, there is a section where Willa's dealing with her father-in-law is very ill, and getting healthcare in America appears to be a sort of Kafka-like nightmare of bureaucracy and different forms of funding and all that sort of stuff. And of course, with the NHS in this country, we almost don't even think about it. But reading that, I found that really horrific reading and very upsetting, actually, the idea that you would go to hospital and just not be able to get the care that you need. It's a real problem, isn't it, in America?
Absolutely, and that scene is an exact transcription of many experiences that I've had as a person of resources, let alone people who don't have either the emotional or the financial wherewithal to fight through it. I've been turned away from the doctor's office many times. I myself took care of a dying relative in in her home, I was the one who had to figure out how to give morphine to, a person who can no longer swallow. As I watch discussions of, of the NHS and privatization going on here, I just think everyone should come over for a visit to the U.S. and then go back and vote.
Yeah.
Because it's really the survival of the fittest over there.
With this book, you wonder, how bad can it get? How bad is the chaos going to get before it gets better? Right. There's a great image or a great phrase used by Tig, Willa's daughter, where she says that after the storm, sometimes it's when everything has been knocked down that you can actually clearly see the sky, and it's about making progress. Is that the optimism in this book, that things have to get bad in order for them to get better?
Well, the optimism in this book is the readers to invent, really, because literary fiction doesn't tell you how to feel or how to think. It asks you how you feel. But certainly the central conflict of this book in all of its timelines and all of its characters is that they're dealing with that double-edged nature of being sheltered. It can mean safe and sound, or it can mean unworldly, too naive, too inexperienced to really know what's coming up, too afraid, to step out. So that's the dialectic, isn't it? And that's the moment we're in. And I personally believe and keep saying to my friends and relations and countrymen, no good change comes from a place of comfort. So it's in times of crisis that we discover what we're worth, and it's in times when the 19th century characters talk about trying to keep themselves in a pumpkin shell, to hunker down and hang on to the old ways. When the old mythologies absolutely fail us, that's when we have to invent new ones. What I thought about and what became more clear to me as I wrote this novel is that it's kind of a love letter to millennials. I'm lucky to have 2 millennial daughters and many people in my life who are in their 20s who have really come up in a different world without the illusion that there will always be more, without the illusion that growth and consumption are, the answer to every problem. Young people who are very resourceful, sort of surprisingly resilient, and it has become clear to me that tomorrow's problems will not be solved by yesterday's people. They'll be solved by tomorrow's people. So I think that if you're game for that, you will find that even though this is a book about people whose lives are kind of falling down around their ears, it's not going to leave you in despair.
No, absolutely not. You mentioned that. I mean, we're talking about a book which is decaying, in terms of its look, and for much of the story, things are falling apart. But that family has to go through so much. But that Tig, for example, the daughter, she understands a bit more about how the world works even than her mother does at times. Yeah. And of course, the baby that this family is effectively bringing up together, it's that baby's future, isn't it? And it's for them to work together to make a better one. But I did feel at the end that there was a sense of optimism because I felt that they would work out how to make it work. Eventually. I just hope that the rest of us do.
Well, that's the experience of a novel, isn't it? That even if you aren't necessarily that kind of hopeful person, you get to be somebody else for the duration of a novel. So you can try on the brain of Willa, of Nick, of Tig, of Thatcher Greenwood in the 19th century, and of his neighbor Mary Treat, who's an exceptional person who just kind of doesn't even care what people think. You get to try out all those mentalities, and when you're finished, you might find that there's some of them that you like, and that have expanded your own sense of yourself and the possibilities.
there are many possibilities thrown up by this book, and as I said, it's not just beautiful on the outside. I think there's something very beautiful on the inside of it as well.
Thank you.
Barbara, thank you so much. It was really great to speak to you about it.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.